Good afternoon, everyone. This is Andy Reese, the Director of the Department on Disability Services. As always, I'll start by sharing our current data. So we are still this week at 446 people who have tested positive for COVID-19. There have been 2 people in October. We've fortunately not added any since last week. So as last week, what this represents is 9 people in host homes, 114 people in intermediate care facilities, 1 person in a mental health facility, 62 people in natural homes, 2 people in nursing homes, 4 people in out-of-state placements, 41 people in residential habilitation, and 213 people in supported living. So the percentage of people in intermediate care facilities, of course, has not changed. So of the people in intermediate care facilities, 38% have contracted COVID. Of that 38%, of the 114 people in ICFs, we have had 28 deaths. However, only 13 of those are confirmed COVID deaths, representing just a little under 11.5% of people in intermediate care facilities diagnosed with COVID who have a confirmed COVID death. In natural homes, the 62 people represent about 6.8% of people in natural homes who have contracted COVID. Of those, there have been 6 deaths, but only 5 of those are confirmed as COVID related. So of the 62 people, we've had little over 8% who have a confirmed COVID death. In residential habilitation, the 41 people who have contracted COVID represent close to 38% as well of the people in residential habilitation who have contracted COVID. 3 of those people have died. 2 of those deaths are confirmed as COVID related. So of the 41 people, we have just under 5% in residential habilitation who've contracted COVID and had a confirmed COVID death. In supported living, the 213 people represent about 22% of people in supported living. Of those, there have been 25 deaths. However, only 15 of those are confirmed as COVID deaths, representing about 7% of people who were in supported living who contracted COVID and have a confirmed COVID death. So overall, the 446 people represent about 18% of people supported by DDA who have contracted COVID. We have had 65 people who have died. That's increased by 1 this week, but still only 37 of those are confirmed as COVID deaths. So of the 18% of people supported by DDA who have contracted COVID, just over 8% of those people have had a confirmed COVID death. As I indicated, there have been no more COVID diagnoses since last week. So far in October, we've had 1 person in supported living and 1 person in a natural home who have contracted COVID. Both of those people were vaccinated. Of people who contracted COVID who have required hospitalization, we've had no one requiring hospitalization since April. So people who have been diagnosed with COVID and have subsequently died, there have been 65 people, including 2 this month. However, of those, 16 are confirmed as not COVID related, and 12 we are awaiting confirmation from OCME regarding the cause of death. And so we are at 37 people who have confirmed COVID deaths. And the last time we had a confirmed death from COVID was in March when we had 2 people who died from a confirmed COVID diagnosis. Among provider staff, we did not add anyone this week, I'm happy to say. So 740 provider staff have tested positive for COVID. That's the same as it was a week ago. 52 of these staff were reported by more than one provider, and we have had 10 staff deaths related to 10 provider staff deaths related to COVID-19. Vaccination rates. Among the people supported, we are at 80%. In host homes, that's at 86%. In intermediate care facilities, it's 99%. In natural homes, it's at 64%. In residential habilitation, it is at 98%. Supported living is at 89%. The update for our provider staff from yesterday is that updated this morning, 90% of provider staff have been fully vaccinated, and among DDS staff, 93% have been fully vaccinated. So as always, if there are any questions, we didn't receive any in advance. As a reminder, people can submit questions in advance and we'll address them. You can type a question into the chat. Just make sure that you address your question to everyone, and we would be happy to respond. One note I will make now is 2 weeks from today, we will not have a forum. I actually have a conflict at that time. It's the day after a holiday, and we also have that day set aside to be doing some work inside the agency. So there will be no forum 2 weeks from today. Do you have a sense of the total number of staff lost due to vaccine mandates? DDS staff and provider community. So for DDS staff, the answer is none. And so for most of DDS staff, there is an option of testing weekly if they're not being vaccinated. There's a small number of DDS staff who are doing that. That doesn't cover all DDS staff because licensed health professionals at DDS are required to be vaccinated, and DDS staff that work in schools are required to be vaccinated. For provider staff, we get the total number each week of staff. However, we don't get if that number goes up or down, we don't get an indication that that is related to vaccine mandates or not. But we are not seeing, it's been quite impressive really how much the percentage of staff fully vaccinated has gone up pretty significantly. Is DDS tracking whether people served are receiving booster shots? What, if anything, is being done to support and encourage eligible people served to get booster shots? We're not tracking that at this point. It's a very individualized decision. So if you're 65 or older, it's recommended. If you are 64 or younger, it's a question to be addressed with your doctor. And so, those are really individual medical decisions. The other thing I would say as it relates to people getting shots, to the extent we are encouraging shots, it is essential that people also this year get their flu shot. Last year, there was a very low rate of flu because people were doing such a good job of wearing masks, keeping distance, washing their hands regularly, and most people were staying inside all the time and not interacting with a lot of different people. And so the flu went way down last year. We're past the time that people could get, not past in terms of you can't get it anymore, but flu shots have been offered in pharmacies or your doctor's office since August. And it's really important that people be prepared for that. So all of these health recommendations would be handled in the same way. There's just a note here. So far I haven't gotten to the end of it to see if there's a question at the end. Thank you for the work you've done to help streamline the retainer payment process. The retainer payment was authorized for up to 3 additional 30-day episodes of retainer payments, 90 individual service days. There is. My question, are we limited to only 3 billing sessions total? In other words, can we submit billing for the retainer on a monthly basis for an individual? I see there's more, so I'll answer that one first. Yes, the limitation is the 90 days. So so you can't bill more than 90 days of retainer payments, and how you submit them doesn't really matter. So it says, can we submit January, then February, then March, April? I see no reason why that could not be done. And you have actually, in your question, said exactly what I just said, which is as long as you are not exceeding 90 days, there will not be a problem. And we've worked closely with DHCF, and they have agreed that we want to make this as seamless a process as possible. So um, do you think booster shots will be mandatory? I follow what DC Health, having reviewed what CDC says regarding um, health recommendations regarding COVID. I don't know if yeah, I don't know if anyone from DC Health, IC Nelson, would like to respond to whether you believe booster shots will be mandatory. Like I said, at this time, they're recommended and only for certain populations of people.
I can only speculate, Director Reese, but at this time, to my knowledge, there is no discussion of booster shots being mandatory, and that's all that I know.
Thank you. So someone is saying that they got a denial error. The message said this was denied due to no active payment within the past 30 days. Um, we can communicate this to DHCF. I don't know if you've communicated it to DHCF to understand what that denial means exactly. DC has announced that it is going to an integrated benefits eligibility system on November 15th. The announcement system includes long-term care. Will applications for DDA or RSA be part of that integrated system? No. That's a message from DHCF, I assume, but it has no impact whatsoever on people receiving waiver services from DDA, and it certainly has no impact on RSA services. Yeah, that relates to, right. Um, it does not relate to people in our waiver, and it doesn't relate to applications for DDA. So Destiny wrote the question regarding getting an error message. If you could email, please, to pamela.harmon@dc.gov, then she can elevate that question to the appropriate person so that we can get the right answer for you about it. And thanks for perhaps being one of our first people to go through this process so that we make sure any kinks are worked out. Ah, wonderful. Someone else did do a test billing against the retainer and it went through successfully. So thank you. It's good to hear that. Um, so Pam Harmon will help follow up on that issue for the person who had the error message. While boosters are not mandatory, can DC Health give a directive on booster mix? For example, Pfizer, Johnson and Johnson, as this information is currently only obtained from the news. Nelson, can you address that?
I can try. It's not exactly my area of expertise, but what I can say is that DC Health recommendations for vaccinations and boosters mirror CDC recommendations, and CDC has not given a preferential mix like you have said. It is something that is in the news. There are some studies, some not peer-reviewed and not validated studies, I might add, that are investigating the potential benefits of mixing vaccines. However, changes in recommendations for both DC Health and the CDC never come from just a single study, especially when it's not validated or peer-reviewed. So that's a kind of a long answer to say that DC Health currently does not have recommendations on that, and certainly wouldn't have recommendations before the CDC came out with recommendations on that topic.
And as I said earlier, all of these questions about a booster, it seems to me, are individual medical decisions, and you really ought to be consulting with yours or a person's primary care physician about their recommendation about what to do regarding any subsequent vaccinations. Including COVID or flu or others. We all see all the ads if you go into a CVS or on television for all the various vaccines that are available to us. It does seem that on this gloomy, rainy Friday, everyone is feeling kind of quiet and tired. Quiet at least. And so if there are no more questions, we could end at 12:30. But as always, if you have questions, please just type them in the chat. So before we do go, Pam Harmon had provided her email before so that if people do have challenges with submitting their claims for the retainer payment, you could write pamela.harmon@dc.gov so that you can let us know what kinds of issues may be arising so we can communicate that to others. And hopefully this is a smooth process finally that will work out and help provide a little bit of supports to our day providers. Well, it's 12:30, so have a great Friday, a nice weekend. gonna be a nice weekend eventually once we get through this rain. So enjoy your weekend, and we will talk again next week. But as a reminder, 2 weeks from today, we will not.